The markets are crashing, and the key question is, what do we do next? In today's video, I'll be going over the key details on opportunities that are available in the market where you can potentially find some profitable avenues to make some money. This is your professor here, and I'm ready to give you that live educational and trade updates on the S&P 500. Today, we've seen the S&P 500 seen continuous movement to the downside after numerous of news regarding the semiconductor space. We got one side with Intel, which the US government's looking to invest approximately 10% into the company and maintain that strong control. On the other end, we got some news with regards to NVIDIA that every new chip that they released, a license is required. This was confirmed by the U.S. Treasury Secretary Bassett during his morning interview. Now, we're going to dig deep into each of these topics and go over what the market is set up for and how you could eventually find some opportunities in this marketplace. One thing I do want to mention here as well is that this week I do not officially have my weekly numbers that I share with you guys continuously. We're relying on last week's numbers because I was on vacation last week. I had an anniversary, and that's why we haven't done, video updates like we normally do on Monday. So let's go into what's happening in this marketplace. So my key strategy going into the trading day, I skipped Monday. As I said, I was on vacation. So pretty much I was kind of trading blindly in this marketplace. When you are trading, you have to get a feel for the markets and kind of understand, how this overall structure is. Going into a market where you're, pretty much starting at the middle of the week or a little later can put you at a disadvantage. Okay, I call this basically trading rust. So many fighters call it ring rust, but it's interesting to really understand the concepts behind it. Okay, so the first thing that we did here, as always, is understand when the market is bullish and when the market is bearish. Okay, so in our report here, we had the bearish gamma set at 64.60. Sorry, the bullish gamma was at 64.60, and the bearish gamma was at 64.30. Okay, this is respectively telling us when the bias is either to the up or the downside, letting us know what we were looking for. Okay, so what we had seen here earlier today was that the market ripped to the pre-market high at 64.56. It's always important to record that information. We started off with a little dip to pre-market low, and then we ripped to pre-market high. So very volatile right out the open. Usually in these circumstances, I do tend to take trades, but I didn't do in this case because, as I mentioned, I started off late. So the first play that we did here, we started our day off with the L. As I mentioned, we were just pretty much getting started into the market here, and we took basically these we started off with Intel, which wasn't an L. It was pretty much up 30%. I was talking specifically about that SPX. So this one here, we're still holding. We still like it based off the news on everything that was happening. It went up 30%. If you didn't want it, you could sell it, but we held it. Okay. So I was looking into getting some calls here because the market looked strong as it was approaching the level, the bullish gamma over here. And in my market report here, I mentioned that the key trading range will be 64.60 to 64.30 zone. Okay, so I was looking for calls here to see a little bit of a dip. What had happened was that the A+ actually didn't fill. So what we did here is that we had instead purchased SPX calls. If we go back here, I didn't get a chance to yet. So I bought these SPX calls there, and these ones didn't work out. Okay, so that was pretty much an L on our end. These went to zero, those calls, but we later placed an order to buy these SPX puts, and once they got a fill, instantaneously they ripped to 80%. Okay, so going back to here, we placed an order right to buy there, and it filled right over here. Okay, so once we got that fill, immediately ripped and profits were made. You can see room is there. You know, some were not happy that the calls didn't work, but at the end of the day, I sold this immediately because I wanted to cover the loss on the calls, which at 80%, we made 1900 on the calls, but we lost 1300 on the, we made 1900 in the calls profit and we lost 1300 on the calls. Okay, so that was how we went green in the first play. The next thing we did here is we placed another A plus setup. So the key difference here is that the A plus setups were doing the best. Okay, that's what we were doing here. So once the A plus setup got the fill, you know, this one didn't actually fill, but only the first one, and we got this other 6380 put, and we wanted to sell that right away. So we sold that for another 87%. The reason why we sold that right away is because of the fact that it was out of range, right? You know that level 2 bearish is over here. So we actually got out right over here. So I mentioned here that we bought those lottos here. We'll hold all day or sell at level 2 bearish. Once it got to that level 2 bearish, we decided to get out. And then the super lotto was also a winner as well, which went up 60%, 65% as well for the team there. Okay, now scratch all that. What's happening next in this marketplace? So this market is set up for a move one way, shape, or form. Okay, so going into the premiums here, you can start to see that our premiums are getting elevated here. If you guys look at the movers in this marketplace, you can pretty much see that Nvidia is moving. You can see that you know, CoreWeave is seeing some weakness to the downside, and so forth. So a lot of stocks are starting to chip into the downside here. Now looking at this, you know, Palantir has been seeing considerable amount of weakness. It's down around 2% here. Okay, looking into the premiums, we've seen there's a lot of orders on the call flow side where, you know, people are trying to buy the dip, but it's not really working here. Okay, if you guys look at the 145 puts here, for example, you can see here that there's a huge premium spike just right over there, which signals that it's going to be some bearish activity there. Now looking into our Discord here, we made a new channel based on feedback I was giving. We've been crushing SPX continuously, but members were asking me, hey, can we have some long-term more swing ideas? So pretty much we called out this Nvidia here, looking at the same concept. So this channel here, we call out a trade and then we discuss that, follow it up to make sure to see how it's doing. So PLTR has an opportunity where the 145 puts can start to move here. So keep an eye on that. It's continued to show signs of weakness. Nvidia here, what you really want to look for is that it has earnings happening next week. So with that being said, the 170 puts do look very intriguing here. Another premium spike there. I pretty much wait for Nvidia to go a little bit down here. The 170 puts, I wouldn't want to pay 80 cents. It's better to probably look at that at 40 cents. So we'll keep that into consideration here. Other opportunities are available include AMD. It looks like 160 is there as well. Now, one thing that's a key thing you really want to be aware of is that we have this 200-day moving average support at 63.81. This key moving average is going to be a strong support. If SPX does break this, these are my last week levels, you can start to see downside that could take the market all the way to these particular levels here. So it's going to be very important to watch these zones here, because if it does happen, then you're going to see a potential drop that will be something that may be devastating for some, but depending on whatever side you are trading on. So keep that in mind, is that you could see a breakdown here or a strong support. The key thing to note here is that we have the Jackson hole that's happening on Thursday and Friday. So the market's expected to move around then. And we also have the FOMC meeting minutes that are happening tomorrow. So semiconductors are getting sold off, and we want to see if this trend continues. And so far, it could go down, but I see that this 200-day 63.81 is where we'll probably settle before the Jackson hole happens. Okay, so definitely keep an eye on that. So that's all I got for you guys right now. Hope you guys enjoyed this quick little session. You know, don't want to make the video beyond 10 minutes, but we'll definitely give you guys more updates as the time progresses, and we appreciate you guys tuning in. So see you guys in the next one.